everybody, and welcome to another episode of the DNF podcast with your girl, Crystal. And yes, it's race week. Come through, vocals. Hopefully, you guys can hear that. I do have the noise cancellation thing on my mic. So if you can't, I'm basically saying it's race week. And yes, it is race week. And we are in Montreal, Canada this weekend. We are at the Villeneuve circuit, and it is a sprint weekend, but I will take what I can get, and I've missed having cars on track. So let's get right into this, because as you guys know, when it is a race weekend, we give what? Our predictions. So I will be giving you my sprint quali predictions and my race predictions. My race quali predictions. I'm not going to tell you how I think everyone's going to be at, because I have no idea where they're really going to qualify. I'm also going to give you sprint predictions of what I think is going to happen during the sprint race and what I think is going to happen during the actual race on Sunday as well. So let's jump right into it, and let me give you my top 10. I'm not going to go through the entire grid for the sprint, just because we would be here all day and I don't really think you want to hear me repeat names. So without further ado, let's start off in P10, and I have none other than Isaac Hadjar. I think that Miami was a rude awakening for him as to who his teammate is, and he either is going to lock in or lock out, and I'm hoping he's locking in. So without much explanation, I have him in P10. Now, P9 is going to be a surprise for me, and maybe a surprise for you, because I'm not the biggest fan of this team, but I do have Franco Colapinto. I feel like he has the momentum. I feel like he gained confidence from Miami. He outqualified his teammate. He actually finished the race compared to his teammate. So I feel like he's going to have that confidence heading into Canada. However, Pierre is Pierre, and Pierre has more experience. I do think Pierre is going to outqualify him and be in P8. So I do think that Pierre potentially could get points for Alpine. P7, I have Max. I feel like Max and Pierre kind of like not at the same level driving wise, but their cars are kind of similar as to the pace, as to where they're at. So I feel like wherever Pierre is, that's where Max is going to be, even though Max did qualify P2 in Miami. And I believe, I don't know if Red Bull is bringing any upgrades. I don't think they are. But if they do, we know that those upgrades tend to work well for Max. Now, P6, surprise for many people, surprise for myself. But I do have Oscar Piastri. I feel like he really, really struggled in Miami. I don't know if it was coming to terms with the upgrade and the fact that we're bringing in more upgrades for this weekend. I don't know how much that's going to hinder him. And I know that he can evolve really quickly, and he's one of those drivers of like, oh, I get it now. And a lot of people have said it, but I don't know. Last year, this was also a track that he struggled at a lot too, even though he did outqualify his teammate. But it was also because that's when Lando was in his head. And I don't know. I don't feel like this might be, I don't think this is going to be a strong weekend for Osk. I'm praying and hoping that it is, and he proves me wrong. But I like to be a realist. Now, they just can't leave each other alone. And I have Lando in P5. I think that Lando's going to have a stronger weekend than Oscar. I don't necessarily think that we will be ready to be in the top 3 for the sprint, just because of all the upgrades that we're bringing. And I know that's a little bit contradictory from what happened in Miami. But again, it's kind of what I said in Miami is very much a Lando track. It's a track that he does really well at. Canada, I mean, last year he struggled a little bit. He crashed into his teammate during the race. So I'm trying to be a little bit more realistic where I think McLaren's going to be at. Now, P4, I have Charles Leclerc. I think that if Ferrari has been able to understand the upgrade that they brought in Miami, and they can then compute that and put that into Canada, we should see a strong Ferrari duo. So I do have Charles in P4, because this is a circuit that Lewis Hamilton tends to do really well at. It's a place that he's won 7 times, holding the same world record that Michael Schumacher does. So when you're named with one of the greats, I mean, how can I bet against him? And that's why I do have him in P3. I don't think we'll be seeing any Ferrari or McLarens in the top well, two for the sprint. However, it might be different for the race. Now, P2, I do have Kimi Antonelli. I know he's on a hot streak. He just is coming back from three back-to-back wins, but Montreal, Canada, the Villeneuve circuit is a George Russell coated track. This is a track that George has historically done very, very well at. Now, if we compare last year Miami with George and Kimi versus this year, kind of similar, even though George did make it onto the podium last year. It's not a circuit that George tends to do well at. However, Canada, completely different story. George won here last year, and I know Kimi got his first podium, but this is a very much George coded circuit. I do have George putting it on pole. So for the sprint. Now, some sprint predictions, because I feel like anything can happen. My sprint predictions for Miami were completely wrong. I had Cadillac getting points and they didn't, but they did better than I expected. So I do have written that someone will crash into the Wall of Champions. People love to give it a little mwah. So I will not be surprised if maybe Arvid, if Gabby, Nico, Stroll, potentially Valtteri or Checo could kiss the wall, or even the top 10 guys as well. There will be a safety car or a virtual safety car, one of the two, and I don't think it's going to really screw anyone's race. McLaren will grow into the weekend, and I think that's what McLaren is really kind of known for. They're not always like off the bat great. It happens on occasions, but typically they are a team that grows into the weekend, and by Sunday they've understood, and it's just their strategy sucks. And that's just the one thing that it needs to be worked on. So Hannah Schmitz, you don't want to come to McLaren? Like, we would love to have you. Love to have you be a part of Oscar's garage. And I have written down that George should win. So that is a sprint. I don't think anything super, super exciting is gonna happen besides maybe somebody crashing into the wall. And I know that's saying like, Crystal, that's not exciting, but I meant like, I don't think we're gonna see that many overtaking moments. Who knows? I could be completely wrong, especially with this regulation. There are opportunities to overtake. Just don't do what Lando did last year. If you know, you know. Now, without further ado, let's get into race quality, because I fear that it's just going to be the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to start off in Q1 and who I think is going to get eliminated in Q1, then go all the way up until Q3, which is our top 10, and it's our pole shootout. Now, in P22, I have Valtteri Bottas, and it's just because Cadillac has never been to the circuit. It's their first year. I know that they traveled a lot with F1 last year and virtually they were racing with everyone, but sim versus real life is completely different from what I've been told and what the drivers have said. P21, I do have Lance Stroll. Not much to say. P20, I do have Fernando Alonso. I do have Checo in P19. And it's just because I'm being hopeful. I'm trying to be hopeful for Cadillac. I would love to see them out of Q1 and into Q2. I think we're making progress, and we'll eventually see that maybe more towards the end of the season, beginning next season. Fingers crossed. But I don't think we'll be seeing them out of Q1 anytime soon, unless something crazy happens with the top teams. P18, I have Esteban Ocon. If you have been on the internet, there is a rumor saying that there's a possibility that Esteban is not going to finish the season in Haas, which is crazy. They're saying Io is not happy with his performance, and it's kind of been like not spoken about, but not a lot of people have talked about how Ollie Behrman is performing slightly better than he is. And I don't know. For however many years that Ocon has been in F1, you would expect a little bit more. And the fact that he's not with Pierre, we all remember the French Revolution at Alpine, had higher expectations, and we really haven't seen that with him. So I can understand why those rumors have started. And that if that's true, I mean, silly season is really among us. And then P17 closing out Q1, I have Nico Hulkenberg. Right now, I fear that Audi's having reliability issues. I don't know where that's come from. And I'm hoping they're getting that fixed because Nico is a great qualifier and so is Gabby. And I would love to see them higher up. But when you have reliability issues, you can only do so much. Now, let's head into Q2. Kicking us off in P16, I do have Isaac Hadjard. Now, you're thinking, Crystal, you have him in the top 10 in the sprint, and now you have him in P16 in the race. There's one thing that Red Bull's going to do is Red Bull's always going to understand what is happening with their car and how they can fix it to help benefit Max. And it tends to screw the second driver. And so I feel like if Red Bull isn't top 3 from the get-go in the sprint, they're gonna figure they're like I said, they're good at figuring it out and being like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and they're gonna fix it for Max, and it's gonna hinder Isaac. So sorry, Isaac, but I hope you prove me wrong. P15, I have Arvid Lindblad, rookie. I think it's his first time driving at the circuit. Yeah, because F2 has never driven here. So I think he's gonna struggle. We have seen him struggling a lot these past few races. He was very impressive and then it kind of just like dipped. I don't also know if that has anything to do with the reliability from the Ford engine, so we'll see. P14, I have Ollie Behrman. Again, out qualifying his teammate. I think he's been driving spectacularly with the machine that he's had this season so far. I mean, I would love to see him a little bit higher, but you can only do so much with the car that you're given. And I don't think that Haas is going to be necessarily strong. Their strategy, however, could potentially come into play because sometimes like their strategy hits and misses. So we'll see. Now, P13, I do have Liam Lawson. I fear that Liam Lawson is becoming one of those drivers who's just kind of like floating by for me. And it's not that I don't like him and it's not that I love him. It's kind of, oh, he's there. P12, I do have Gabby. I feel like he's gonna miss out on Q3, but just a teeny tiny bit. Again, and it has to do with the reliability of the Audi. I feel like it's been more Nico's side that's had issues. So hopefully that gets resolved and he doesn't start having issues. Now, P11 missing out Q3 by hundredths, tenths of a second. I do have Carlos Sainz. And the only reason that I have Carlos in P11 is I just really want Alex to do well. I know that they both got points in Miami, but I need Alex to just have a good weekend for my sanity and for my sake. I need it. And that is the end of Q2. Now let's head into the pole shootout and into Q3. Who do I have taking pole? You're about to find out. But let's start off in P10. And I have none other than Alex Albon. And you're thinking, Crystal, why would you do that? Listen, I have to be realistic still. I want him to do well, but I have to be realistic. And hopefully, I'm not saying, I mean, like, Williams' strategy can be okay at times. So I'm hoping Williams' strategy will elevate him higher. P9, I have Franco. Again, I just think it's the momentum that he has. P8, shocker. Lewis Hamilton. I know you're saying, Crystal, you had him in P3 and now you have him in P8. And it's the same thing. I feel like, and this happens a lot with Charles, is Charles will do okay in the sprint, but he kind of locks in and goes, okay, I get it now. And he'll lock in and we'll be able to qualify higher than Lewis. But Lewis isn't really able to build much more than that. I feel like if Lewis starts off strong, he'll plateau there and he doesn't go above that. And so I feel like everybody else will be playing catch up. And by the time that they do catch up, Lewis will stay where he is, and that's P8. P7, I have Pierre. I feel like Alpine is it's a little bit strong. I don't like talking nice about Alpine, but that's all I'll say. P6, I have Charles. I I know, but it's because I feel like McLaren is gonna understand and they're gonna be the ones to say, I get it now. So I feel like McLaren and Mercedes and potentially Red Bull will level up, so to speak. P5, I have Oscar, which to me, okay, I would love to have him on the podium again. I would love to have him win, period. But again, I have to be realistic, and he is my driver who goes, I understand, I get it, but it's not one of his stronger tracks. So P5 is where I have him qualifying. P4, I have Max Verstappen because I feel like he's going to understand the upgrades, and he, from sprint race to quali for the race, I feel like he's going to be able to evolve, and his team is going to be able to understand what he needs from the car, and they're going to be able to give that to him. But I don't think that Red Bull necessarily has the pace to be in the top 3 in Canada. Maybe on other tracks, but maybe not Canada. Now, top 3 for qualifying in P3, I have Kimi Antonelli. I feel like there could be like little sprinkles of pressure of George performing well here, and potentially Kimi overdriving, and that could hinder him a little bit. We haven't really seen that at other tracks. I mean, well, kind of. We've had glimpses of it. So I feel like he's gonna maybe make a mistake, maybe kiss a wall somewhere, and that's gonna he's gonna lose time, and it's going to hinder him and put him into P3. But I mean, a hindrance in P3 is not that bad. In P2, I have Lando Norris. This is not a Lando Norris track, but Lando Norris is a good driver. I don't know where that came from, and I'm going to leave it at that. And taking pole position, like I said, I can't bet against him, and the fact that he's in one of the fastest cars on the grid, I have to go with George Russell. I feel like he has no other option but to lock in this weekend, because if he can't do well at this track and like a George track, then he has serious issues for the rest of the season. Because if he does well here, then he doesn't have to worry so much in Europe, because I feel like that's kind of where him and Kimi will really come into their own, and hopefully we'll see a really good head-to-head battle. But if he struggles here and he's not able to take advantage, then I feel like Mercedes is going to put all of their eggs in one basket, and it's not his basket. It's going to be Kimi's basket. So, George, don't let me down. I usually don't root for you. Now, I do have some race predictions. So, I have been looking at the weather. It tends to be really windy and sometimes rainy in Canada when we go there. It looks like we'll be getting a little bit of wind, but I don't see any possibility of rain. There is a slight chance of rain on Sunday, but as of right now, it doesn't look too big. So I think we're gonna have great race starts for McLaren and Ferrari, and that could create some chaos because that first turn comes at you quick. It's start, go, turn, and you're just like, ah. So you're probably thinking, Crystal, you do have like chaos on the first lap. No, because recently everyone has kind of done okay, except for Max spinning like a ballerina on the first lap in Miami. But I don't think we're gonna have any retirements or any crashes on the first lap. I think everyone's gonna make it unscathed, or at least semi unscathed. Someone will hit an animal. Groundhogs tend to be at this track, and Lewis Hamilton did hit a groundhog last year, so it's kind of a given. Might hit a bird, might hit a groundhog, who knows. There will be contact between teammates. Don't know which teammates, but yeah. Maybe it's the Audis, maybe it's the Aston Martins, maybe it's the Mercedes. If it's the Mercedes, oh. But most likely it'll probably be the Ferraris, because that's what we've seen throughout at least this season. So I have 2 predictions here. So either we will have a Mercedes driver win, and in this case being George, or we will have a new race winner in 2026, which would be exciting if we could bring in, like, if we could make it a four-way battle, so it could be like George, Kimmy, Oscar, Charles. Oh, I mean, throw in Max in there for like a little bit of spice, but more realistically, like, I feel like that could be a great battle for like the championship. Who knows? Um, there will be a safety car. There will be a safety car. Last year, we didn't get a safety car until like the last few laps, and that's because Lando hit his teammate. So I don't know. Well, those are my race predictions for the Canadian Grand Prix, you guys. Let me know if I'm completely delusional, if I'm wrong. Let me know if you agree with me. Or let me know who you have in your top three. It should be an exciting weekend. So yeah. Before I sign off on anything else, I do have to say congratulations to Arsenal for winning the Premier League. And of course, I have to say a massive, 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 massive congratulations to Barcelona for winning the league as well, La Liga. And we will be having some World Cup content coming up soon. I know I keep saying that, I keep teasing that, but I promise I will be talking about soccer soon. I promise. But anyways, you guys, that is it for me. I can't wait to oh my gosh. I can't wait to debrief this race with you guys after this weekend. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends, family. I appreciate everyone who watches and anyone who has subscribed. And I will see you guys next week.